Ladies and gentlemen of BRD Nation, I thought I'd bring in a special treat today. We've got a dear friend of mine, Ridge Payne. Ridge is a great leader, husband, friend, and he's been a high producer in multiple fields in things related to summer sales. He's been one of the top producing solar reps for multiple companies. 2018, he was the Vivint Solar, not a top rookie, but that's when he started.
That's where I started, yeah.
2019, Rep of the Year. 2020, Rep of the Year. 2021, oversaw 1,750 installs in solar. Now, in comparison to our world in pest control, that's a lot of revenue. That's a lot of power. That's huge. That's massive. 2022 grew a ton. Oversaw 2,800 installs. 2022, that founded Loyal Solar and Roofing. Mm-hmm. And who's your partner in that again?
Jordan Evans. I founded it actually with a couple other guys, but we've parted ways. But yeah, Jordan Evans is my current partner.
Cool.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jordan.
Shout out to Jordan.
And well, dude, and also a Bitcoin enthusiast. So we're gonna get into all that. But first, Ridge, thanks for being on.
Dawson, it's an honor. Glad to be here.
Well, dude, just so kind of jumping into it, I want to let everybody know a little bit about you. Kind of give you the floor.
Yeah.
Where are you from? How'd you get into sales? All that good stuff.
Yeah, so I grew up in Spanish Fork, next to you actually. So, funny enough, so Dawson and I went to Diamond Fork Junior High together, alums.
Shout out D-backs for life, baby.
Yeah, D-backs. So I grew up in Spanish. I went on a mission, went to Canada, and then I came back. I've only known religion and solar, knocking doors, and now roofing, I guess technically, but. Yeah, so I came back, went to Bakersfield, California. I actually lived in Bakersfield, California for a couple of years, full-time, just doing the year-round sort of stuff. And I started at Vivint Solar, and then my manager started his own company called Lyft. And so it might be a little misleading where it says top rep. For the back-to-back years, it was a smaller company. I was not the Vivint top rep.
Oh, okay.
That would be pretty crazy. Shout out to the guys at Vivint. They throw down. But and then Lyft was acquired by a company called Lumio. And then after our first year at Lumio, we decided to part ways and start our own company.
I remember that transaction, or that there was so much buzz in the solar world around that time.
Yeah.
Kind of talk to me on that really quickly, if you would.
It was fun. It was cool. There was 4 or 5 companies merging together to create Lumio. We were the California company. There was California, Washington, Texas, and Florida. And we ran the sales for the California side of the company. And it wasn't just me that was overseeing things. It was like Tanner Halford, Bronson Ashton, Jordan Evans. There was a lot of people. Jordan Melhoff was the owner and kind of led the sales. Mike Hayes, another owner. So there's a lot of people that kind of pitched in to do that, and they did a really good job. They did installs really well. And then they did this acquisition. It was like $110 million. It was crazy. There was a lot of hype. And in 2021, money was just flushing around. So, good for them. And then we did a year at Lumio, and there was like problems there. I think when you merge 4 companies or 5 companies, it's really tough. And so I don't fault a lot of people for how it went. But then we just felt it was better for us to go and kind of do our own thing. So, yeah.
Well, cool. Well, and one thing I kind of want to jump into, or the one thing I've always admired from afar, because I've watched your career slowly over time. I remember when you were first a rep, and then you were kind of going into management, and then like as leader, now an owner. One thing I've always noticed about you is you've always been very steady, and a lot of people turn to you for like a lot of advice and like
that's nice.
Mentorship. But at one point, you were the guy boots on the ground, just starting.
Yeah.
Talk to me about those early days. What were some life lessons that you learned just kind of starting out as a door-to-door rep?
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, it sucked. It was tough. I remember I was in my hood, and in solar, what we had was you get assigned a hood and you're there for 3 months. Like, you do not move, you don't go anywhere else. Like, that's how Vivint Solar did it. My manager's there, Sterling Hills, Jeff Galvan, D. Will, Mike Hayes, they were like, no, you stay pack, and then that's where you run all your deals through. And so you create continuity within the neighborhood, and you like everybody sees you every day. Like it was funny. I had a guy that told me no probably 10 plus times. I got him, but like man, it took me 8 months. Just like in that neighborhood, like I never left. And so that was their philosophy, and I thought it worked really well for solar. But eventually, like I think they did that truly to get you to understand the basics of like staying put, doing really good work, and then eventually I would venture out into other neighborhoods because then I knew my pitch or at least the fundamentals of it. So then it kind of created my own. But it was just hours. And so the line that they would always teach me is like, you work the hours, not the number. So I would kill it. I'd get like maybe, I don't know, 4 deals that I'm going back to the next day or the following day. And it was like 3 o'clock. Well, you work the hours, you work till 8. And so then as long as you're just consistently working those hours, that's kind of where I saw the benefit. And then the numbers just kind of come as a consequence. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so funny. A lot of first year reps do that where they try to outthink rather than just outwork themselves.
Yeah.
And then when you're starting out in anything, like you wouldn't go into a basketball gym and just be like, here, let me sit on the sideline for a minute, like a couple minutes, and like write down like a couple layups or a couple strategies. No, you just go out and play on the floor.
Yeah.
And things are going to come together. And I don't know why we do that in business a lot, where I think a lot of times experience, we don't take it as the greatest teacher, but it is.
100%.
Yeah. And one thing I always tell my guys is I'm like, you need to be out there a minimum of 8 hours with your hand on the door. If you take off and you're calling people, or if you're, I don't know, eating a sandwich, you can't count that. And so you should stop a timer or whatever.
Yeah, as you're lying in the water.
Yes.
Or are you just getting your bait ready, or, like whatever. But if the line's not in the water, you're not getting a fish.
100%.
So, yeah.
Well, and kind of talk to me really quick on like, I mean, being in that long in an area, that like pest control reps hear that and they're like crying because we blow through hood.
Yeah.
But one thing I kind of learned over the years, in my 3rd year, my 2nd year, the longer I could stay in a hood and build momentum, all of a sudden the job became easier because you're able to name drop more. There's just so much more success that comes to being able to like use credibility throughout the area.
Yeah.
Talk to me on that. Like that's just like that's a cool like thing for it to hit my ears. So yeah.
So you'd want to stay in the hood, and when you would get a deal that would go through, because you'd have deals and you're gonna have attrition, but seriously, when those trucks come in for a site survey, that's like prime time. I need to know when that surveyor's there. So what Vivint was really good at is they would have a thread with all the reps and the surveyors, and they're like, hey, I'm coming to your place. I ended early. And I was like, awesome. I have to get there. So then I drive my hood to make sure I'm there, because it's free branding. It's free building momentum. It's like they can see a brand, they see it's me. It's like, no, we're really doing work in your neighborhood. I imagine in pest it's a little bit like kind of like, oh, we're helping out with your neighbors. I don't know. Like, yeah. I've never done pest. And so I would use that. And then install day was kind of another marketing employee, because Vivint Solar had this huge truck that said Vivint Solar on it. And then the same thing with Lyft and Lumio. And so, when you start really kind of getting the traction of everything kind of flowing through, you're getting like maybe 1 or 2 deals a week that are going in. And that's where it's like, if you're not knocking at your installs, it's a wasted opportunity, I think, just because it's like you're in your neighborhood, somebody else could be in the neighborhood, but they're installing your product. And so if another competitor's in the neighborhood trying to sell, it's like, if I'm there, they see me and they see like, well, somebody else is doing, with Ridge, why would I work with this guy I don't know? Mm-hmm. So that's what I found. I mean, it does take longer, solar. It's construction. And so that's where I think in the very beginning, it was really hard to get it going. But once you do, it's kind of a snowball effect. And I think that's the same with pest, just getting past everything.
Well, that's life too. Like,
yeah.
I heard a saying once that it takes a rocket 80% of its energy to get out of Earth's atmosphere, and then 20% to coast to the moon. And I don't think we've ever been on the moon, but it's, I mean, nice. I like the analogy.
Nice, yeah. If we did hit the moon?
Yeah, if we did.
Yeah, okay.
But no, I'm teasing.
So you're a flat earther too, huh?
I mean, one day I want to go all across the globe and tell people how the Earth's flat. That's my dream.
Sweet.
No, Rich, I love this. This is fun. But as far as like, I think you've had an opportunity to be around a lot of really high caliber leaders and people, like at all those different companies. Like I know multiple people that have gone through those camps. Leadership and some of the people, like, is there someone that comes into your mind when you're like, that was a phenomenal leader for X reason, and this is what I was able to take away?
Sheesh, there's a lot. I got surrounded with a lot of really high quality people that I got to work with. And I think it's funny. A lot of people are like, "Oh, it's the leaders that are like above you that you like, kind of, I don't know, put on a pedestal." And there were some of those that were like above me, or the CEOs or the whatevers that were much more qualified than I was. But I learned a lot just from people that were just grind day in and day out. Like, I'm like, why do you grind? Like, you are kind of like, there's some people that I'm like, you are socially totally like incoherent. Like, I don't know how you get sales. Like, this is crazy. And I would just watch their body of work. And so a couple people, I guess, would be like that I saw, like Weston. I really admired his work ethic. I've worked with him for, we were on the mission together too. So if you go there, almost, 9 years that I've seen how he works and how he operates.
Shout out to Weston.
Yeah, shout out to Weston. You know Weston. You went to high school with Weston.
But, same basketball team. Yeah, dude, he is a worker. He's a good kid and honestly just a nice person.
Yeah,
always friendly. Every time I've ever seen him too. I never got I saw how hard he was like working in basketball, but I can imagine it transferred pretty well to the work atmosphere.
Yeah, and I would say that like Weston's one of those for me, and then I've worked with Tanner Halford, Bronson Ashton, Jordan Evans, and the funny thing is I didn't work with them until end of 2020. And I got to know them really quick on how they operate, and it's the theme for them was the whole time when I first met them, they're like, we get the boys paid, and that's all that matters. I'm like, what do you mean by that? And they're like, well, it doesn't matter. It's just like if a guy sells a deal, he's the most important person in the home. Like if someone's calling and we know he's in a home, most important person in the business. If his deal is on the calendar for a week, we're trying to move it up because we want him paid. And so it's like the leadership and the loyalty to their people I found as I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And that was kind of part of the reason why we wanted to call that company Loyal, is like loyal to your customers, loyal to your people, and then eventually like that kind of takes care of itself. And so I saw that from those guys. That was kind of a really cool trait that I found from them. And then, you just come across killers that are just so smooth, slick with the tongue, and you're just like, man, I can't even think that quick, but like, so one day I'll get there. But yeah, I mean, I would say those guys for right now are pretty cool for me to emulate.
And one thing I love about that is like a lot of times people don't how do I put this? A lot of times people can't see the full picture, and at the end of the day, when you own a company or when you're over people, your number one customer is your sales rep. It is the person you're managing, because one, if they make more, if they have a great experience and want to come back, your company's going to grow. Everyone's going to be happy, and it's kind of like the rising tide raises all ship.
Yeah.
But it's wild to me to see how many people have massive companies or big organizations and they don't get that.
Yeah.
Or it gets lost in the cracks, or it's like, there'll be someone next year. But I'm the same way. Like I love environments where they understand that like the people coming through the camp, it's the number one important experience is that they have a great experience.
Right.
So I think that's really cool. I like that a lot. Talk to me really quick on like marketing and branding and stuff like that. I know you've dealt heavily with like putting a couple different brands out there. When I was in college with you guys, I would always see you guys in the hall, and I was shocked at like the unity that you guys had. You guys were always really like good, like you, Weston, Noah, like you guys always like were wearing the merch and kind of like building brand loyalty, or like some like raving fans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What's some tips?
Great book.
Yeah. What's some tips or tricks you might have to be like, oh, this is how we created like that?
Yeah, I think it really stemmed from, and we this is a model that we have at Loyal is, and I wouldn't say in raving fans, like, reliability and dependability, you have to hit it every time to be consistent. And I wouldn't say that our company has done that every time, but we do sure try. And that's just the simple saying. The motto is do what you say. If you do what you say, it solves a lot of problems. And that's why either you're cautious with your words, or when you do give your words out, then you are to follow up on that. And so that's kind of the brand that we held. Like when you're talking about us at UVU, like I thought that Lyft was really good at that. And so I wanted to wear their stuff. I wanted to and they would hand it out. Like that was the other thing. It's like they would hand out merch. And rather than like having to like scrape for it. It seems like some companies are just like, oh yeah, we'll get it next quarter. It's like, man, like I would buy it right now if you'd let me, you know? And so from that, I would say just doing what you say is something that I really, really liked. And the companies that do that, I love wearing their stuff. And the companies that don't, I don't. And then like from a marketing standpoint, my partner, Jordan Evans, for Loyal, he's just a creative savant. He's so good at just like making stuff cool, you know? Like Weston can make anything cool, right? He can wear anything. He can be like a trash bag and it's cool. It's like, I don't know how that works, but it's cool. Jordan Evans is the same way. Jordan Evans makes anything cool. So from a marketing standpoint, I would say that I have a really good partner at that. Myself, I just wear it, you know? I'm not one of the creative thinkers. So yeah.
No, you're being modest. Yeah. So talk to me really quick too. I mean, you're well read. I remember that when we were little, I was like, oh no, Ridge is a bright guy. What's some books you've read or some stuff you've studied that you're like, I think this can help anyone that's going into a summer sales atmosphere?
Yeah. I'm currently in the process. I'm just about done with it. It's Chop Wood, Carry Water. You read that one?
No.
That's a good one. That's such a good one. It's just principles. It's a kid that wants to be like an Asian samurai warrior, and he goes and lives in Japan, and his sensei teaches him chop wood, carry water, and then he wants to be able to shoot an arrow like from 100 meters away. Well, he for 2 years can't go more than 7 feet. His sensei won't let him. He's just learning the basics, chopping wood, carrying water, because it helps the community. And so it's like basic principles. Like, it's a really, really good book. I'm not done with it yet, but I really love it so far. That one's actually recommended to me by Jackson Reber.
I'm putting that on right now.
Yeah, that's a good one. Raving Fans is a great one. It's funny that you bring that up. I just finished that last month. And then going back to your question, books that you recommend for just going out for sales
or life, anything. Yeah.
From the best sales book that helped me was Brian Tracy's. What was it? He's got a couple of books. It was his main. It was his main one, but it's
Psychology of
Selling. Thank you. That's like the one that I listened to, read like all the time because I just sucked. And so what I think the difference maybe for people is like, it's good that like I know a lot of people that read books, but then I know people that apply books, and it's like that's where I see the difference in like what people can do. And I think a lot of it comes down to like writing stuff down that you read in the book. Like, I love taking notes in my book, so like physically having a book is a big thing for me. Digital's fine. I just find it hard to notate and then refer back to, because there's times where I'm like in my study, in my office, and I'm like, what was that thought? And I'll pull out the book, and I know what my note was because I know I started or I did something, and I can flip to it, and I don't remember the page. I'm like, oh, that was really good. So those would be those 3 books I would say: Chop Wood, Carry Water, Raving Fans, and Psychology of Selling.
Those are great. Well, and I really want to read the Chop Wood, Carry Water.
That's a good one.
I haven't heard that one, but so that's going on my Audible.
Nice, sweet. And then the guy that wrote Psychology of Money, he just came out with a new one that's Same as Ever. That's a good one.
Same as
I just finished that one too. That was a good one.
Okay, I'll have to add those to my canon.
Sweet.
As far as like, I mean, we kind of touched on area management, but just going through, I mean, like, again, you're talking to pest guys here, but what are some things that you would say when you're going through a hood in the morning, like on like just a random day? What are some things you're always we're looking for as like key things to kind of hit on or find to get people home?
Warm doors. I would just try it because it's if you really think of it, it's cold calling, but just knocking. You're cold knocking, and I would just try to find warm doors to help my own swagger kind of come out. Right? It's easy, like when you're in a meeting, you get hyped up, and you go out, and you're just like, reality hits. You're like, I'm alone in this hood, and I have nothing. And so, how do I create it? And so I would find, if it was a Vivint smart home thing, I'm like, like when I was at Vivint Solar, I'm like, you're with Vivint, I'm with Vivint. Like, how's it going? How's your system? Just trying to get conversation. When I knew I had a conversation for at least 15 seconds, I had them. At least I could get a pitch off, right? So it was just like what I can do to get anything for 15 seconds with them, whether it's like the system, their house already has solar. I would go and be like, hey, like, how's your system going? I'm new to the neighborhood. I'm doing solar myself. obviously look for referrals. Those rarely came from me when I'd ask cold like that, but I'd ask them and talk to them, and I'd pull information out like, is your neighbor a renter or a homeowner? Oh, they're a homeowner. Like, neighbors know that stuff. But I'm like, do you know this guy or this guy? And then sometimes you get like the guy of the neighborhood that knows everybody, and he kind of point me in the direction. So I'm like, okay, I'm not stopping there, but I'm stopping here. And I'm going to name drop Charles that I just talked to. And so I'd find a warm door, even though I wasn't probably going to sell him. It set me up for the rest of the neighborhood that I go to.
I love that. Well, and I think it's just like, that's being able to see past just the pitch. I think a lot of times when reps get an area, they zero in on this is like the most important thing. For me, it's always been three. It's can I read like the canvas or like the area? Can I read the people who I'm talking to? And then can I read the pitch? Yeah. And I think all of those are important that they go together. But a lot of times I see first-year reps, second-year reps, or guys that just never really like figured the art out, just zeroing in on one of those parts, when in reality it's all three of them coming together to close deals. So
that's great.
Favorite close. Obviously, like solar roofing, it's a longer sale and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I always loved hearing from other people. Like and I don't know if you know this, I actually sold solar with Solcius. For a while.
Yeah.
And it was fun. A shout out to all the guys at Solcius that were there with me. But I learned a ton there that I was able to bring into pest control. What are some closes, or maybe one of your favorite soft closes that you've used over the years that you're like, this was super helpful to kind of close a lot of deals?
Yeah, like closing techniques.
Yeah.
Okay. It's always nice to have like a bag of one-liners to use. You know, I had one-liners go south, and I've never used it again. But there's a couple times where you're just trying to alleviate. Like in solar, it's a big purchase. You know, you're taking out 30 to 50 grand on average to finance, or if you're doing a PPA, it's a little different. But so you try to, obviously people buy from their friends or people they like, and so you want them to like you. And so if you can make that happen, great. And typically I find that just with like, you know, brief, short humor or short one-liners, like I'd be running credit and like it's probably not appropriate, but if I had that relationship built with them, I would drop the line. But like I'd be running credit. You have to verify the income or ask what the income is. And depending on if it was the wife, I'd always say, and I'd look at the husband, I'd say, is this the sugar mama? And then he's like, oh, whatever. But it alleviates it because it's like we're running credit. It's kind of a big moment, right? For a lot of people to transition to. In solar, how I transition to know if they're ready to buy would be I do kind of a T-chart. I would do solar and the utility. I'd go through the pros and cons, and then I do another T-chart of like the options in solar. So I acted more as a consultant than a salesman, and I'd give my recommendation. And typically when I go through that, they'd be like, well, what do you recommend? And once I knew that they were like asking for my recommendation, I did a good enough job for them to know that like they can trust me. This is a really good product. This is a really good, you know, option. And the way I'd know they're ready to buy is I'd turn the device and be like, how does this design look? If they told me it looks good, they're good to go. If they say I want panels on the back, they're good to go. I just need to change something. Or they're going to just put me at an all-out stop. And so once I used the design at the end, that's how I kind of knew and gauged where they were at without having to be like, where you at? You know, so.
I like those a lot. Well, and humor itself, just figuring out how to add at those tense moments, like something funny or something that can kind of break the tension is huge. And I see a lot of reps feel like, oh, I'm in sales. This is serious. I don't want to like say anything kind of like that's going to throw the customer off.
Yeah.
But I feel like you have that mindset, you're too tight.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of loosen up and realize like, hey, you're not going to say some silver bullet, but being willing to laugh and just that non-anxious presence, people respond really, really well to it. And even if they don't really respond well to your sales pitch, they'll feel more like, okay, this is a real person that's trying to take care of me.
Yeah, I think just being authentic, and it's such a cliche thing to say, but I find it where like when I'm on my mission, I'd have like some whatever missionary like hunch over and just take it all serious. And I'm like, dude, just be real. Like, whoa, what you trying to bring the spirit here? The spirit's gone. Like, you just ruined it, you know? Or if I'm in a home and I'm shadowing a kid, he's like, and his tone changes and it becomes much more, it's like, hey, if you're just you the whole entire time, they don't get weirded out. It's when you start changing your tone and it's be more serious. At like the serious junctures, I found that's where either I or somebody else would lose a sale, or an opportunity.
And I've seen too over the years, the years where I didn't have to have the next sale or the next deal in order for my day to like keep going well, or for like things, all of a sudden I saw an increase in production and an increase in how many people wanted to come on with me. And I think it's part of life, learning that like it's not that serious. It's just you're still gonna be able to eat tonight. The the world's not gonna come crashing down if something does slip up, go wrong. Because really, in reality, we talk about summer sales a lot, and I feel like it's basically become a year-long thing.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, for a lot of different people. Like I feel like the salesmen are starting earlier every year, going out a little longer. But you can like stay out there or be out there as long as you want in order to hit your goal. And I think viewing it a lot less like, oh, if I don't maximize every second and do all this crazy stuff, just realize that you're going to get there. Things are going to be okay. Just breathe and you'll make it happen.
No, for sure.
So,
I like that. That's great.
That's cool. Well, just I guess kind of like to wrap up, or kind of like in closing, is there anything that you're like, hey, this is something I always make sure to tell people when they're getting into a sales job? Like a lot of people out here watching are going to be anywhere from first, second, third, fourth year reps and beyond that are looking for something to improve their summer, improve their recruiting. Is there anything you'd say to them and just be like, hey, I think this will help you?
Yeah, I would just say where your focus goes, energy flows. That's kind of a phrase that I've heard. So if you're always trying to do a side hustle or something, like what you do is your side hustle. Like that is your thing. That should be the focus. That's what I've found, at least for me. When I'm focused on too many other things, like that's where my attention goes and that's where my energy is. And so if you really want to excel and expect to do what you want to do, or like your income goals or your sales goals, it's like that's where your focus should be. It shouldn't be on, I don't know, your girlfriend at home, or like, not that that's not important, but like when it's work, it's work. You turn it on, and then it's not like, oh, I'm going to do this Amazon affiliate marketing business. It's like, cool, that's sweet. Then do it on Sunday. Like you're not doing it here. Yeah. So I just found that where it's like where focus is, that's where I think a lot of good can come.
Well, I think if you do that, it allows you to dive in deeper when you are at home, or when you are supposed to be with your friends or in different situations. You're able to dive in better there too, when you can dive all in when you're supposed to be at work.
100%. And then I would also add, guys will try to they'll claim that they're successful because they work the hours. And it's like, okay, you work the hours, but what are you doing outside the hours? Like, are you, before you go into your hood, are you prepping? Like in solar, I'd have my Canvas app and I would like highlight the night before every house that already had solar. So I was like, okay, these are my warm doors I can talk to. Mm-hmm. And then I get to the hood, I already knew my first door I was knocking on. Like there's other things that like beforehand you even get to perform, just like you said, like on a basketball court. It's like, yeah, the game started and you should play, and you might have a bad game, but what are you doing after the game? And if you're focused on just becoming better, I think that's another thing.
Well, no, off-court performance is huge. Like sleeping, getting the 8 hours a day, planning and making sure that you're like, it's crazy. Like I will take an extra hour to like plan, make sure I know where I'm going, because I'll knock an hour longer. I'm still not going to short myself in that time, but it can drastically change how the next 7-8 hours go. Yeah. So it's so crucial. But dude, I hope a lot of people get a lot out of this. Thank you so much for being on here.
Thanks for having me.
we definitely feel lucky to have you. Just come on and drop some wisdom. So
yeah, go Bird. There you go.